When the magician combines danger with illusion, the resulting creation is the one which generates the highest entertainment quotient. That's the reason we see more and more ridiculous tricks being performed to this very day. So, be it the infamous sword-swinging trick, or the crazy magician doing some insanely crazy stuff. Hello and welcome back, and today we're gonna figure out the secrets behind the most dangerous magic tricks of all time. So, let's get started. The first trick, the blindfolded sword trick. This trick, performed by Aaron Crow, is quite possibly the most dangerous trick performed on talent shows. Here's what he did. Spectators and one of the judges on stage to start performing his stunts involving sharp objects. For his act, Aaron picks up a burning candle and drops hot liquid wax onto his closed eye, thus sealing them totally shut. He then blindfolds himself with 3 different materials, i.e. the white gauze, followed by a black tape, and finally the aluminum foil over his head. This was enough to convince the audience members and the judges that he was not able to see anything. Thereafter, he goes on to use various objects, including a sword, to first chop off the objects being held by the spectators. And then finally, slices a pineapple off Howie Mandel's head perfectly. So, how was he able to perform this act so dangerous? Well, here's the secret. Now, you'd think, how come Howie agreed to this act, which was also a huge risk to his life? Obviously, it's a pretty classic Hollywood secret in which Howie was already informed of the act. Otherwise, why would anyone risk their life? Also, the act was practiced several times with stand-ins, along with the producers of the show giving their approval to perform the same, only after getting to know the key elements of the trick to make sure nothing goes wrong on stage. Now, coming to the secret, the trick consists of 2 parts. First, the burning candle wax, and second, the blindfolded part. So, how did Aaron's eyes survive the melting wax? Obviously, the candle wax can be very hot, and you should never try this at home or anywhere else. Also, if you see this graph, it shows how much damage our skin suffers when exposed to high temperature. So any wax which has a melting point below 50 degrees Celsius would not damage our skin if the exposure duration is very short. Here, the liquid wax you see must be paraffin wax or bayberry wax, which has a low melting point. Also, if you observe Aaron, he raises his hand and holds the burning candle quite far away from his eyes. So, this gets enough time for the liquid wax to travel, and as you know, it only takes a few seconds for the wax to melt off and harden completely. Thereafter, he had enough time to open his eyes inside the blindfold while it was still warm and malleable. And even if the wax did cool, it was just a thin layer of wax which he easily scratched away from his face. So, this is how he kept his eyes safe inside. Now, for the next part, how did he slice off that pineapple? Well, his eyes were all safe, and he was able to see through the covering. Otherwise, the show would never let anyone perform this dangerous act with him blindfolded and not able to see. But how was he able to see through the layers? Well, he did wrap the white gauze and the black tape followed by the foil. But there's a trick to these props. They were not secured properly around the head, and the way he put all the stuff on his eyes was just a trick. Now, Aaron's a perfect illusionist, and if you check his left-hand index finger, you can see his finger sneaking and pulling down the blindfold. At the same moment, he wraps a silver foil around his head which conceals the finger movement underneath. So the gauze is just like an eye mask which can be lifted and back down again. But what about the outer covering of foil? Obviously, the white gauze and black tape were a perfect covering which hid his eyes and he couldn't see through. But the foil you see on his head is not an aluminum foil, but a transparent material known as silver window tint, which is mostly applied on car windows. It's a one-way reflective glass material from which he could easily see through. So, he wraps around 2 layers of that tint, one at the front and the other one at the back of his head. And he separated them while wrapping it around his head. And now you know it, his vision is not blocked, and he can see through the blindfold and goes about cutting the objects with quite ease. But still, isn't swinging a sword above a person's head very dangerous? Well, it is, but the sword you see was a gimmick sword, which might even be just plastic. And the pineapple placed on Howie's head was pre-cut to almost 90 to 95%, and thereafter only needed a small force to slice it apart. Also, the golf-shaped metal bar to the right of his face is almost 3 inches, which means the sword would just rebound and not hurt him in case he missed his target. Finally, while removing the foil, he puts back the gauze to its original position to end this amazing act, which left the audience and judges gasping for nothing.